Blender Social Livenodding. In this episode, I want to show you a simple setup that you can use in Blender, geometry nodes and additional SVerchok nodes here that I hide at the moment. So you basically here have like a bunch of curve objects, and each one of them is a procedural, of course, and you can make changes, and yeah, you can do whatever. But if I tap something, tap the arrow key, suddenly we have another shape here. It is actually like mesh objects, and it's creating like a cutter. So SVerchok nodes in the background is doing something. Let's take a look. This is one of the basic but really cool setup that you can do with SVerchok nodes. So yeah, basically it's taking this curve mesh objects and turning it into something that's kind of more useful, that you can actually proceed further. So let's take a look. So it's basically, it takes this object which is supposed to be like a mesh, because SVerchok like mesh objects, and it's using this couple of nodes, intersect edges, find the intersection of every shapes, and then do this magic planar edge net to polygons, and then do the polygon booms to separate all polygon faces, and this is what we get. And the whole thing is live, and it's always you can always make changes. For example, if I get rid of this resample curve, so that's the original shapes. It's just like super basic shapes, and you can translate. So lots of curve primitive generator is basically generating like 2D shapes. All right, if you are using a lot of CAD or procedural, 2D shape is actually really important. How you create the 2D shapes is totally up to you, but if you do it with nodes, you can make it generative, so it's always easily you can make cool shapes simply by combining different shapes. That's basically what it is. I wish that in geometry nodes we have like a boolean for shapes. We kind of have it with SVerchok actually, but in this case I just want to show you this super simple setup. I just gonna save this. So yeah, so with geometry nodes, again, you have curve primitives and bunch of nodes that creates geometry. Like for example, this star shapes. Of course, it creates star shapes, and you can make changes to the shapes. And what SVerchok does here, for every overlapping shapes, it's gonna generate new shapes. So this is a really powerful feature of SVerchok add-on that yeah, because SVerchok have more than 200 nodes, sometimes it's get confusing how to actually use the nodes. But what I found is that if you are using something like geometry nodes, since geometry nodes still kind of new, and then it has a lot of cool stuff that you can do here. For example, if I delete everything, right? Let's SVerchok is not doing anything at the moment. So, but you can, for example, start with a mesh circle or curve circle, whichever you want. And for example, you want to instance on points like a bunch of other circle. You can guess what's gonna happen. It's just these shapes, right? So nothing too fancy, but yeah. And then we have this node turning it into a mesh, because SVerchok like mesh objects, and SVerchok will find intersections, etc. Oops. Oh yeah, it says key error from an empty set. Okay, we apparently need to use realized instances as well. Yep. Okay, that's one thing to remember. SVerchok likes that kind of mesh object, and then if you are using geometry nodes, always remember you sometimes need to realize instances in order to actually turning it into mesh that you can further process. So yeah, this is such a simple example, but super useful. Oh, okay, this one actually it fails. Oh, interesting. Yeah, but anyway, it breaks apart the shapes, and yeah, you can see the result right away. You can always put all these pieces into its own collection just to make it tidy. So create a new collection and specify the collection here, so it's nice and tidy. SVerchok generated pieces. Of course, with SVerchok, after you polygon boom, you can also mesh extrude, or you can always extrude it manually using solidify, whichever you like. Yeah, for example, these pieces, so I just created this. You can select all of them, solidify. Okay, yeah, we have thickness on one of them, and command L just link, copy the modifier, or in fact from these collections you can just grab them and bring it back into geometry nodes and further work it out what you want to do with it. So if you create another cube, geometry nodes, just drag and drop these collections. You want to do something fancy like random scatter, you can of course do that. Grid, distribute points on faces. This is collections. So this bunch of points, that's a lot of points. We can instance on points. Maybe instance these objects. Collection contains current object. Okay, collections 2. Okay, this guy have to be outside. Okay, now we have something there. Okay, we have these shapes kind of scattered. Okay, we want to have collection number 2. Okay, we might need to, they're all separated children, but their position is not reset to the center of the polygons. Okay, maybe we need to use, oh, I forgot the name, but we need to center pivot these objects in order to be able to separate all of this. Oh, okay. Oh, I forgot to turn on pick instance. Now it's working as I wanted. So yeah, all right. So let's summarize what's happening. We have curved circle, right? That we can still make changes. You can randomize the curved circle or make like random distribution. Let's see. Here we are making like these pieces. You can set position of this guy and then just use random vector, for example. Just plug this into the positions. So we are randomizing the curve. And I'm offsetting slightly. So we're gonna end up with this randomness, random pieces that we can scatter as cube number 2. Okay, so we have this kind of like a crumb. So that's basically what I really want to show you. It's maybe slightly confusing, but create like a basic shapes using geometry nodes, and then just, you know, arrange them and make them overlapping. And SVerchok will do some magic here, magic of operations. And yeah, you can end up with something interesting. For example, also don't forget we have quadrilateral that we can instance, and this guy is really underrated. It has a lot of interesting stuff, you know, like, okay, like even like rectangle, if you combine and overlap the rectangle shapes, you have a lot of interesting looking shapes. So that's really the premise of this. Kite, trapezoid, even trapezoid is just so underrated. Yeah, and then so we have these shapes. This is the second shapes, right? We can totally create interesting design this way. So anyhow, yeah, this is the setup. It's super simple, super basics, just a bunch of nodes, but with unlimited possibilities. Maybe in the next episode I will try to make something that's kind of more useful, but this is the basic idea. Hopefully you find this useful. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.